Have you ever watched a honeybee gather nectar and wondered what happens next to turn it into honey? It takes a lot of work by the bees and the beekeepers. Let's watch the beekeepers at Kalamazoo Valley Community College's Apiary do a routine late summer hive inspection and harvest some honey. We use a style of equipment called Langstroth hives. They are composed of an outer cover, which has already been removed here, an inner cover, and then a stack of boxes, or hive bodies, filled with frames of beeswax comb. Our beekeepers today observe that the frames in this top box are entirely filled with honey, so they are going to set this box aside and proceed to their hive check. A hive check is one of the most important activities in beekeeping and should be done about every 2 weeks during the warm months. A beekeeper needs to monitor their hives for indicators of health. They will look for eggs, larvae, and brood, which are signs that the hive has a healthy queen. They'll also assess how much space the bees have in the hive for honey and for reproduction, and they'll look for signs of disease and pests. They'll end with a test for varroa mites, a common parasite that can lead to hive collapse if not treated. Beginning with the second frame in, they pull out one frame at a time to inspect it. The frames are stuck in place by propolis, a substance similar to beeswax that acts as a sealant, so they carefully pry them out with hive tools. You can see capped brood in this frame. You can also observe that as the bees hatch out, the cells are being filled with nectar. Once all of the bees hatch from this frame, the worker bees will begin to store more honey here. The beekeepers work their way through the frames, finding mostly capped brood in this box, with a good, solid pattern of covered brood cells. It's helpful for a beekeeper to have a partner for hive inspections, to hold frames, lift heavy honey boxes, consult on interesting activity in the hive, and of course, for safety. The beekeepers work slowly, trying to move at the speed of a bee to avoid alarming the bees or accidentally injuring them. We filmed this inspection in one take and want to show it in its entirety, but we'll speed up the footage for the next section. In the next box down, they find more frames of eggs, larvae, and brood with no signs of disease. This hive is very healthy, with a productive and active queen, and has plenty of space for her to keep laying eggs. Here's a closer look at one of these frames. Around the edges, there are honey stores, as well as some capped brood nearing maturity. Here you can even see a new worker bee emerging. Let's zoom in more. There's that hatching worker, and just here you can see larvae, a few days old, and some eggs. The eggs are hard to see, especially on a bright day, but they look like tiny grains of rice at the bottom of each cell. Eggs and young larvae are good indicators that the hive is queen-right, meaning there is a healthy, productive queen bee present. The best indicator, of course, is to spot her during the inspection. We never actually saw the queen during this inspection, but this is what she looks like. Notice the larger, longer abdomen and the dot of non-toxic paint that she's marked with to make her easier to find. While the beekeepers keep moving through the hive, let's look at some of the other things they might see. Some frames may have comb filled with a brownish, yellowish, opaque substance. This is stored pollen. Pollen is the protein source for bees, while nectar and honey are their carbohydrate sources. Also called bee bread, pollen can be green, blue, pink, red, purple, or any color, depending on the color of the flower it came from. Ooh, this is exciting! A bee is doing a waggle dance. This is how bees communicate to each other about the location of good food sources. The bee makes a semicircle and then waggles in a straight line. The direction of the line indicates the direction of the food source, and the bigger the waggle, the better it is. Check out links below to learn more. They might also see different shapes and sizes of brood cells. Worker bees are all female, and they hatch from the smaller, smoothly capped cells that we've already seen. These wider and taller domed cells are drone comb. Male bees will hatch from these. You can see a couple of male bees, or drones, in this image. They are larger and chubbier than the female workers. Some drone comb is normal, but a lot of drone comb can be a sign of trouble. This frame also has a queen cup, this elongated raised structure with the opening in the bottom instead of in the side. If an egg is laid in this cup, it will be fed a substance called royal jelly before the cup is closed up into a queen cell, where the larva will develop into a queen bee. A queen cup is nothing to think twice about, but one or more capped queen cells can tell the beekeeper that the queen is missing or ineffective, or that the workers are too crowded in their hive and are preparing to swarm. Now the beekeepers are preparing for a mite check, so they're looking carefully at each frame to make sure the queen bee is not there, so she won't get caught up in what happens next. They choose a frame of brood and then use a scoop to gather a cup of bees, about 300 of them, and put them in a special filter jar that is filled with windshield wiper fluid. They shake the jar, and any mites attached to these bees fall off and slip through the filter, which gives an estimate for how many mites there are in the entire colony. Any more than 5 mites in the test is over threshold and warrants treatment.
Well, I'm not going to tell you what I see. You tell me what you see.
Then the beekeeper counts the mites. 1, 2, 3, 4. Great, we're below threshold. Now the beekeepers carefully, gently put the hive back together with a queen excluder above the boxes containing brood. A queen excluder is a metal or plastic grate that is placed between boxes above the brood nest. Its openings are big enough for worker bees, but too small for the queen. It ensures that the comb above it will be filled only with honey. Later, they will add a box of empty comb above the queen excluder to give the bees space to store more honey. This hive inspection is taking place in early August, and the bees will continue to collect nectar and store honey through the fall until frost. Since we don't have to treat for mites today, the beekeepers move right on to honey harvest. This box weighs at least 50 pounds, and each of these frames is entirely filled with capped honeycomb. The beekeeper gently brushes the bees off the frame over their hive so they go back home, and then places the honey frame in a large lidded tote. This will go into the freezer to kill any pest larvae that might be present, or straight into the kitchen for extraction. That's the whole process of a routine hive inspection and honey harvest at the Kalamazoo Valley Community College Apiary. Thanks for watching, and stay busy.